What is up, guys? It's your boy Brennan, aka Drip, aka Galaxy God, aka Hatless Messy Hair Drip. Back with another video. In today's video, we got another highly requested video and a highly sought after video and anticipated video. Whatever. You guys wanted the video. I wanted to make this video. This is actually the second take of this video because the first take, I got so excited on making the video that I forgot to put the adapter in, so it sounded like I was underwater. But this is the second take and the final take. So let's get into this. Started off with the list. We got Afterglow. Now, one thing I will say, before we dive in too much, sorry, I'm bouncing around. I just get excited when it comes to Galaxy Eyes. One thing we're going to be talking about in this video is ratios, new ratios post new support, reasoning why I dropped them down, reasoning for all of my ratios for every single card, what I think the new cards individually will bring to the table, and moving forward, what and how I see this deck moving, and how basically what it's doing and how the deck is shifted. So that's what we're going to talk about, and outside of my obvious list and reasoning for my cards that I've already mentioned before. Sorry, talking in circles. But back to Afterglow. Starting out, we have one Afterglow. I know normally now what we currently have, the cards we have now is a two of. The reason why I dropped into one is his sole purpose outside of enabling an OTK is the extender factor. But post new support, him as an extender is not really necessary anymore because we have other means of extending. Majority of all the cards that we got are extenders. So there's not really use for him to be an extender anymore because his version of extending actually low-key gets kind of power crept because it requires you to control a Galaxy Eyes monster, if that makes sense. So there's that. And if you need more than one, you just recycle them, basically like you do with a lot of your cards in this in the deck. So there's that. Moving on to the 3 Photon Dragon. Photon Dragon is basically a standard, obviously. If you're running a Galaxy Eyes deck, a Blue Eyes deck, a Cyber Dragon deck, you run 3. It's just standard, just how it is. But with Galaxy Eyes, it's more standard because of what my boy 3 Stacks said a long time ago when he made his Galaxy Eyes videos. Shout outs to you, my guy. I love you, bro. You're just an awesome dude. Overall, great duelist, great person. Just the ideal human, basically. He's a pure-hearted guy. So shout outs to you, man. But he said when it comes to Photon Dragons, you want 1 in hand, 1 in grave, and 1 in deck. And ever since he said that, even my early days of Galaxy Eyes Photon, before I became the Galaxy God, I lived by that rule. And ever since I lived by that rule, it has worked wonders for me. So that's the ratios on that. That's the reason, obviously, why that will probably never change. Moving on, the one thing that's kind of weird, if you couldn't already tell, is the 1 Galaxy Knight. Now, the reason for why we run 1 Galaxy Knight now is he is not the main focal point of the best normal summon anymore. With the way the deck is shifting and moving to maximize on consistency and the most competitive, basically. He is not the best normal summon. He's the one you want to normal summon during mid to late game, kind of, sort of. So, because we have other ways of extending now. So, he's best paired with a Galaxy 100 and in a mid to late game situation. So, and if we need him, we can add him back because his best part that he's used for now is, like, currently, is being able to resurrect Photon Dragon and getting an 8 on board because we don't really have very many ways to get 8s on board. So, but with this new support, outside of Photon Emperor and other things like that, we have plethora of ways to get 8s on board. So he's not really necessary in that regard, and he doesn't provide as much utility as Wizard does moving forward, which we'll talk more about Wizard and why he is the GOAT moving forward post new support with what we currently have with the new support, if that makes sense. Basically, if anything else gets announced, Wizard's going to stay at 3 unless we get a better starter. Moving on to the Photon Emperor. This guy's just goated. He's arguably the best new support that we've gotten besides Galaxy 100. Those two are the best new support cards if you want to play the most competitive version of the deck, consistent version of the deck. I was early stages running this card at 3, but the reason why I cut him down is because his effect is kind of situational too. It basically requires you to have Galaxy Soldier or Trade in your hand to be able to completely utilize him in his fullest potential. So you, even though you and Galaxy 100 can kind of get you instant access to him too. So that's the reason why we run him at 2. So you can get instant access to him, and you don't really want to see him in hand unless you have the other cards, if that makes sense. That's the reason why we run him at 2. One thing I will say, his other effect that gives us the extra normal summon is another reason why he is really goated in this deck. On top of that, another thing too is even though we have all these other ways to kind of get access to him, one thing I failed to mention is that you can side the second copy out when you're going to the game 2 or 3, because once you get one rotation, it's perfectly fine. That's all you really need, really. And if you're wondering what I'm looking at, I'm looking over at my computer screen to see the list so I know what I'm talking about next, if you were wondering. But Photon Emperor puts in work for us, and it's just the way ratios work for me. If you know my videos, the way I deck build and everything like that. 3 if you really want to see it, 2 if you just want to see it but you don't want to clog on it, and 1 if you never want to see it but you need it for combo or something like that, or it's just a good utility card. That's the reason for my ratios. He's 2. I want to see him, but I want to see him paired with other cards or ways to get to those other cards, basically. Moving on to Photon, Jesus. Galaxy Brave. Galaxy Brave, if you've seen my previous videos and my how to build Galaxy Eyes video and when I empty my brain on when I build Galaxy Eyes decks and stuff, Brave's ratios usually depicts on Wizards, basically. Which is kind of still true, but the reason why we not max them out on Brave, because you don't want to like clog on it, but since our Photon numbers have gone up, it's really, he indirectly becomes a starter with all the Photons we run now, because we run, I believe it's 11, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, we run 11 Photon cards now. So the odds of seeing him with a Photon is really, really high, and he becomes a starter when you see those, basically. And he manipulates his levels. The ability to manipulate your levels in the future of Galaxy as Photon as a deck is going to be the most generic and the best utility cards that you can get out there. The fact that Brave can become an 8 or become a 4 is crucial, because the way the deck is flowing and the way the deck is moving forward after this support comes out is through 4s and 8s and not solely through 8s. Because the way Galaxy Eyes runs now, it runs through making 8s, and every now and then it'll make 4s. There's not much utility that comes out of 4s, unless it's just generic rank 4s that you're using like Dweller or something like that to completely blow out your opponent if they play in the grave, like with Tearlaments or something like that. But that is still hard to do with the current support we currently have because of Sanctuary locking you into lights, basically. So you have to open Godly. But Brave being able to manipulate his levels is one of the biggest reasons why he's a crucial card with our extender starting, or just a combo piece, basically. And he's a trade-in target, worst case scenario. Moving forward to Galaxy Soldier, the best starter we currently have. There's no really explanation needs to be about that. If you don't run this card at 3 in a Galaxy Eyes deck, I don't know what you're doing, bro. One thing that's kind of funny, I was thinking about it randomly. I've played this deck for years now, and I find it hilarious, but also frustrating that he's a Galaxy Eyes card, kind of a Galaxy card. He's a Galaxy Eyes card, Galaxy card, basically, and he's mainly a starter for our deck. But he's a level 5. and Galaxy Eyes and Photon basically thrives on 4s and 8s. And I just find it kind of funny, but a low key triggering at the same time that he's a 5 and doesn't really contribute to making any of our generic cards. But yeah, Soldier is Soldier. Not much explanation needs to be said about him other than he is the GOAT. Moving on to Vanisher. Vanisher is one thing if you couldn't already tell, I'm before we get fully diving into Vanisher, if you couldn't already tell, I'm not running Thrasher. Thrasher is hella power crept. Definitely post new support, he is severely power crept. And if you don't agree with me, I love you, but you're kind of living in the past. Because the way the deck is moving forward, outside of being able to manipulate, wanting to be able to manipulate levels between 4 and 8 and swarming, it wants to swarm. So the deck already has swarming capabilities. Why do you need one extra monster that actually shares more about being a brick than it does a good extender? The card is dead post turn 1. And if you're worried about your board being broken and using him after that, then you're just overthinking it, because the deck can rebuild with a clear board just fine without Thrasher. After turn 1, all he becomes is Galaxy Soldier fodder, and that's not enough reason to keep him in there, because there's better things post new support to discard off of Soldier than Thrasher. For an example, Photon Dragon, the best one to dump off of him. Now, Photon Emperor. Photon Emperor is indirectly just as good, if not better, than Photon Dragon to dump off of him. Why? Because Photon Emperor can help you chain block your Galaxy Soldier from Ash. Chainlink 1, Soldier, Chainlink 2, Photon Emperor to special summon. Only way to stop the Photon Galaxy Soldier is Valor or Imperm now. And which is really nice, because there's certain situations in modern Galaxy Eyes, that's your only play. Photon Dragon dumps something, and then search, and then they just hit you with an Ash, and then you just pass turn, because you don't have enough extenders. So, yeah, Thrasher is just power crept, and please don't run him. Please. I promise you won't regret it. But Vanisher is a very good card that I normally ran at 3, but since we have all these other extenders and other ways of doing additional normal summon and stuff like that, he's not mandatory, and you don't want to clog on him anyways. So he's one of those cards you want to see in your hand, in your opening hand, or draw into him, but you don't want to see him in multiples. Once you get one in rotation, you're good. You're good. And after that, once you see the second one or something mid to late game, then he's just an extra level 4 and a free extender. But that's my reasoning on him. 2 has worked perfectly. On a real note, all these ratios on cards I'm going to say in advance have worked perfectly. I know I'm probably going to talk in circles when I say it too, but it's just overall I just love this deck and I love this list. So, but 2 has worked perfectly for me. Now to the power 1-ofs. The power 1-ofs. Galaxy Summoner and Galaxy Cleric. These two cards are literally like peanut butter and jelly in this deck, dude. They just I don't know, they just feed off of each other kind of, and they bring so much to the table as power 1-ofs. Galaxy Summoner is, in this deck and in the new era of Galaxy Eyes, basically will take the place of Galaxy Zero. It does what Galaxy Zero does, but better. The reason why it has less drawbacks and everything like that, mainly being the fact that it's a monster. Because Galaxy Eyes Photon has the number one issue when it comes to bricking is, what a lot of people, when they build the deck, the issues they have is they don't know how to properly ratio between spells and monsters. Galaxy Eyes Photon's main consistency comes from monsters. Obviously, hence their swarming factor. That they sometimes don't even need a normal summon, even though we can get 2 now. They like to swarm. So being able to proper ratio between spells and monsters is crucial. And if you can get the same effect off of a monster that you basically would get off a spell, then the monster's a no-brainer. Because yes, Galaxy Eyes has power spells like Galaxy Eyes Expedition, Galaxy Trance, Photon Sanctuary. Those are power spells that bring you back. But monsters, what do those spells need? Those spells need monsters, which is where majority, 90% of your consistency comes from. So Summoner is basically 0 but better. It's a 4 and it's a monster that can be pitched off Soldier and other stuff like that. And you can bring back or a special summon from Trance to get it in rotation. which that's another thing I'll get to when we get to Trance. Trance now is more than just an OTK card. It's a consistent get access to a card type of card. But no, Summoner is disgusting and it's a very good one of. You do not need it in more than one of because you just want a brick and it's just hand trap magnet and it's really good to see mid to late game. Same with Cleric. Cleric's a hand trap magnet and you definitely don't want to see it until mid to late game. Cleric will never leave my list. Probably never. I will say that 100% honestly. I don't think it will ever leave my list. Cleric is too good. Too good. And if you know me and the combo that I created several years ago for this deck that a lot of people do now that is the norm, which is the Zeus combo, that as long as definitely Zeus is around, Cleric will be even more powerful than she already is. So Cleric is Cleric. But moving on to Advancer, my reason to run an Advancer outside of just the capability of having an extra extender, our Photon count is higher now than it is currently in the modern era of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you see my previous list. Moving forward, post new support, our Photon ratios will be higher. So Advancer will become more live than he normally is with what we have now at the time of recording this video. So Advancer is basically, in a certain way, never dead because our new monsters, Photon Emperor, he's a Photon. Galaxy Photon Dragon, the rank 4. He has Photon in his name. Number 90 has Photon in the name. The Photon ratios have just gone up, and the new Photon card, since Photon's gotten new support, has gone up. So, like I said, Advancer's never going to be dead. He'll majority always be live, and he's a 4 because the deck is going to utilize rank 4s more than they ever have before. Pun 4s have before. But so Advancer will help you with that. Moving on to Photon Orbital. There's not much need to be said about this. Prevents your stuff being destroyed by battle. Gives that 500 boost. One of the best rotas we got in the game. I mean, in the deck right now. So not much needs to be said of that. Now to the MVP of the deck, and that is Galaxy Wizard. Galaxy Wizard is the MVP and the best starter moving forward post new support outside of Galaxy Soldier. You can't change my mind on that. A lot of people are sleeping on him and not understanding the full utility that the factor that this card brings to the table. But don't worry about Galaxy God and Drip. Myself, myself, as if I'm two different people. I will tell you why this card is the GOAT moving forward with the new support. Starting off, he's a normal summon. Obviously, he's a normal summonable card, but he's a level 4 that can help you get into your 4s. 2, we have multiple ways to normal summon twice now. So you can normal summon, use his effect, find a way to loop him back to hand with Soul Flare, to normal summon him again to be able to have access to your 4s. So we can normal summon twice. He can become he's an easy way to get into rank 4s. He can manipulate his levels to become a rank 8. So anything that basically, moral of the story, anything that can manipulate levels to between a 4 and an 8 is going to be severely crucial moving forward in Galaxy as Photon. So Brave and Wizard are disgusting when it moving forward. There's nothing that there's no way around it basically. And I don't know. And he's a very good small world target too. So that's 3.5, 4 different ways of why Wizard's really good. There's some times where, I don't know if I showcased in some of my replays, I've normal summoned Wizard, use Vanisher, basically search Photon Dragon, overlay into Galaxy Photon Dragon, detach the Wizard, make sure I detach the Wizard so I can get it back, and then search something off of Photon Dragon, and then make Soul Flare after, and then normal summon Wizard, use this effect whether I'm searching or I'm making a level 8 to be able to get access to whatever I need. So basically, just off of Wizard, I was able to get into my rank 4, then normal summon him again because I use like a Photon Emperor or something like that. Got the extra normal summon to make a rank 8 or search any of my Galaxy spells like Galaxy 100, Galaxy Expedition, Galaxy Trance, anything like that. Just off of one card. Galaxy Wizard basically enabled all of that. That's just one scenario to where he comes up just disgustingly clutch. Um, but I'm going to move on from him because I can be sitting here talking to you about Wizard for days. Basically, moral of the story, moving forward, Photon Sanctuary, Galaxy Soldier, and Galaxy Wizard are the best starters in the deck. Just plain and simple. Now to the hand traps, Ash Blossom is the most flexible spot in this entire deck. And what I mean by that is nothing else can be like really moved around ratios wise. Everything, in my opinion, is perfect. So like I'm not going to change ratios on basically anything archetype wise unless we get new support announced on top of the new support. But the reason why I run 2 Ash and not 3 is because 1, it's a fire, 2, it's a hard once per turn, and 3, you don't want to clog on it. You want to see it with combo. One thing you'll notice right off the bat with this list compared to my prior lists, Galaxy Eyes Photon normally can hold 6 to 7 like hand trap / go second cards, but now they can't hold that. They can hold that many, but you don't really want to. You want the most impactful ones, and then the rest of it just gas, so you can play through everything and maximize on the deck's consistency, but still be able to interact with your opponent basically. Hence, Ash and Droplets. Droplets will never leave my deck as long as it's at 3. It will never leave my deck, and I think that everybody should run it, but I'll get to that when I get there. But Ash is the most flexible spot. If you don't want to run Ash and you're afraid about the fire standpoint, another thing I will say too is Ash is also a small world target. Whether you're searching Ash or you're using it as the middleman to get another card. Because fun fact, let's say you opened like Ash Blossom basically. You can use small word and indirectly use Ash to banish a wizard from deck and then search whatever you want, because the only Ash shares the same attack as wizard basically. So it ties in with small world too. But if you didn't want to run Ash, and the format has changed by the time you're watching this video, because the only thing, like I said, the only things will change is the utility cards in this deck. That's it. I would run Ogre or Veiler, mainly because they're lights and they're small world targets too. Or you can main Dark Ruler, but that does not take out Droplets. Droplets has to stay in here, has to. But that is the like I said, I just wanted to let you guys know Ash Blossom is the most like flexible spot in the entire deck of anything else. Nothing else is flexible. Ratio wise, everything is perfect. I will say. I really think it is, and I not trying to hate on anybody else's list, but I really think this list is better than any of the other ones I've seen. Mainly, like I said before, if you hear me talk about it all the time, I'm not the first to put the lists out, but not necessarily saying I'm the last. But when I put my lists out, you can trust them more so than probably others. Not trying to sound cocky or anything. I just take a lot of pride in my Galaxy Eyes list or any of my lists, but definitely Galaxy Eyes, because Galaxy Eyes is my baby, and I love this deck so much to the core that definitely, like all of my lists, I want to make sure when I give you a list that you can trust it and you can trust me with what I say. Hence why I gave myself, and a lot of you other guys gave me the nickname Galaxy God, because people have for like years now basically know that they can trust me and what I say when it comes to this deck. I'm not going to steer you in the wrong direction. I'm going to make lists for you that you can run and go out there and win with, and will be consistent. And you will also know that I'm here to help you when it comes to anything. On top of that, a lot of the Galaxy norm I started. Little Small World, the Zeus, and stuff like that. So I take a lot of pride in that, and I thank you guys so much for all the support over the years and stuff when it comes to this deck. But moving on, that's enough about that. I love you guys. Galaxy Cyclone, you have to run Galaxy Cyclone mainly because Mystic Mine. Sorry, my mind got foggy there. I was paying attention to something outside. I was like the dog off up. Squirrel. And we're back. But no, Galaxy Cyclone you have to run because you have to respect Mystic Mine, and it's searchable. For years now, you have heard me preach about when you play this deck, keeping everything tight and always do the same symbol. What I mean by tight is in archetype. Reason why is because if you keep it in archetype, everything is searchable. You don't want to work. You don't want to rely on the classic Yu-Gi-Oh top deck. Yes, the top deck can be good. Top deck game can be good. You always want to maximize on consistency. You're like, man, I really hope I draw this as my next card. As where if you ran away to search that card, you can just go get it. So not just Mystic Mind, but other cards too, Floodgates. It's nice to have an out to, and you can actually. I know a lot of people are like, well, it's situational because you have to pop a face down before you can pop a face up. Well, you can also foolish it off of Galaxy 100 and get access to being able to pop a face up that way. But it's always nice to have at least one main deck out, and I like it better than Duster because it's searchable. So. Moving on, Photon Sanctuary. It's about one of the best starters in our deck. Not much need to be said about that. It's a 1-card Soul Flare and is the best follow-up to add off of number 90, my opinion. Not much needs to be said about that. And then moving on from there, we got double trade-in. Trade-in is trade-in. This card's been in the deck for the beginning, dawn of time, basically. But the reason why I don't maximize on it is because myself personally, I have terrible, terrible luck when it comes to trade-in. And that is I either draw 2 trade-in in my opening hand or I use trade-in into another trade-in. So indirectly, even though our level 8s, Jesus Christ, our level 8s have went up with this new support, you don't really want to maximize on it because you want to draw cards that will help you instead of relying on another trade-in and playing into other hand traps like Ash and stuff like that. So 2 has worked out good for me. Definitely when it's paired with 2 Small World, it gives you the consistency that you need on a clean basis without seeing too many of them. And then moving on from that is 1 Expedition. I know it's really weird to see, definitely for some of y'all, because some of y'all are like Expedition enthusiasts. Y'all absolutely love that card, which I don't blame you. I really don't. It's a very good card, and for years and years and years, it was the best extender slash like card that we had, and I get that 100%. I really do. But the way the deck is moving now, you don't need more than 1, and the way it's shifting, it's a 2, and the game is itself, not just Galaxy Eyes. The way the deck is moving now, the game is too fast for Expedition because Expedition is too situational. You have to control level 5 or higher, which in theory is not that hard to do. But in situations where you need something to get you out of a scenario or get your engine flowing, Expedition's not the one to do it, and it's too situational where you have to have a certain amount of like certain cards in hand and make Expedition very good, if that makes sense. But the one of is perfect because it's searchable, and if you need it a second time, you can just shuffle it back and then search it again, which sounds like a lot of work to do, but it's really not in this deck. You can easily do that. So, and ever since I've dropped it to 1, even in my current Galaxy Eyes list, I've dropped it to 1 before, and it's worked me wonders. It's fine. It doesn't clog as much. The card's very sticky to my hand personally, anyways. But the ability to recycle back is just fine. I never missed the second or third one. Moving on to Galaxy Trance. Galaxy Trance gets a serious boost with these new cards. It's not just an OTK enabler like it is now currently at the time of recording this video. When you get the new support, Galaxy Trance indirectly is the best extender and low-key indirect searcher. Because usually now we use it to make rank 8s and stuff. Now you can use it to make 4s like Photon Dragon to search whatever you need. But what's really, really cool and big brain that I use it for, when I'm going to use it to make an 8 or a 4, normally sometimes I use it to make a 4 more than I do an 8 if I'm not pushing for game. Like turn 1, I use it to make a 4. I bring out a level 4 from my deck that I need instant access to or I'll want as a follow-up, and then use that as the detached material from the 4. So like if I want Galaxy Cleric or Galaxy Summoner for my additional normal summon, I will use Trance to special it from the deck, make Galaxy Photon Dragon, detach that card, like say I want Summoner, detach Summoner, search whatever I need, and then use Soul Flare to add back the Summoner because it indirectly was a searcher. So Trance becomes more of a searcher slash utility card more than just an OTK enabler in the new cards. because you have more. You have a variety of cards now instead of it being a really small, compact cards list, basically. So yeah, trance indirectly becomes a rota, kind of pseudo rota in that manner, which is really nice because, like I said, there's certain situations where I use expedition, not expedition, but trance, target orbital engrave, target summoner because I wanted summoner, make Galaxy Photon Dragon, detach, search like Galaxy 100 or something, and then use Soul Flare, make Soul Flare, add back summoner, and then normal summon summoner and bring back the orbital or something like that, and make Starliege, the Photon Blast Dragon. Yeah, it's just trance enables so much, and you can pseudo say like, oh well, what are you going to do after you already burned it on that and you can't use it for OTK? You just reshuffle it back with Cleric. That's where Cleric comes in clutch because you can get instant access to Cleric through number 90 on your opponent's standby phase, which leads me to my next thing before I continue on with the list. One thing you'll see in one of my replays that I didn't do it, and it was mainly because I wasn't paying attention, which I didn't learn this now. I've done this for years. I've done it the entire time I've played the deck. It's just sometimes when there's a lot going on, I don't have ADHD, but sometimes I think I do, even though I've been tested for it. I don't. I pay attention to my surroundings, and I don't really like focus on the game. But when it comes to number 90, always, and I mean always, do his search effect during the standby phase because of kaijus, mainly, or Dark Ruler, or something like that. So always do his search during the standby phase. And the proper way to do his search, I don't give a shit how big your board is or how many negates you have or hand traps you have behind your board. Always, and I mean always, if you don't already have a follow-up card in hand, whether it's Cleric, Summoner, not Galaxy, but Photon Sanctuary, something that's a really solid follow-up, always search a follow-up with number 90. I don't care how big your board is. If you have a follow-up in hand already, search an interruption like Photon Dragon to use to pop for your pop with your Soul Flare. So basically, if you have an interruption, search a follow-up. If you have a follow-up, search an interruption, and always do it during the standby phase. Please, please. You'll help yourself, and it'll indirectly make your like gameplay with the deck better because you're playing around more interactions with your opponent, basically. But moving on to the small worlds. Small World, if you've seen my list before, this is another one of those cards that I've basically made relevant for Galaxy S Photon Dragon that a lot of people use now. I started out, I was the very first one to use it in the list, and ever since I did it, it was basically the rota that we never had. It's good at 2. I've ran it at 3 in the previous list. That was like obviously with what the support we have now. But with the new support, we have a bunch more consistent cards and other utility cards and extenders, and so you don't need it as much. Sorry about that. You don't need it as much before now than you did, but like currently without the new support cards. So 2's fine, and you don't want to clog on it. You really don't want to clog on it. Sorry about that, guys. My kid's school called. But anyways, Call by the Grave, there's not much I need to explain about that. It's a god card. People want it banned. I don't know why. There's decks out here that can main 15 hand traps plus, and we only have one real way to stop them, is Call by the Grave. You can't argue cross out. Cross out is okay, but cross out, the only way to counter those hand traps with cross out is if you run them too, and that's just not optimal and not fair. So Call by the Grave is a fine card. You having 15 hand traps to me having the one out, get over it. And then Droplet, the best card in this entire deck. I'll always run this in here, and I always run it in almost any deck that I run. It's just too good. It's good offensively and defensively because defensively, obviously, they can't chain to it, and it gets Photon Dragon and Grave. And then offensively, if you use your card and they try to target it with something, whether it's Imperm Veiler or another kind of effect like Dogmatic of Punishment or something like that, you can just use Droplet, send it, and then negate their monster effect, and then their card does not resolve because they can't properly target the card because the card is no longer on the field. So the Imperm Punishment Veiler won't resolve. And you get to negate a card and your card will resolve. So engrave, basically. So there's that. Droplets is just too good. There's no real budget alternative for it, so I'm sorry about that. But if you're going to spend the money on these new cards anyways, you might as well spend the money to buy Droplets. By the time these new cards come out, Droplets will probably get reprinted. The Mega 10 at this point in time is not confirmed, but if it's not the Mega 10, it'll be another set probably reprinted again, and it'll be about $25 to $30 card, and it'll be more affordable for you to be able to pick up. So there's that. Moving on to the best card in the deck besides Photon Emperor, they're neck and neck for the best card, and that's Galaxy 100. Galaxy 100. This card is the card that makes your inboard better. I've heard on Twitter and through the Discord of other people talking and on YouTube that people are saying these new cards do not make your inboard better. If it does not make your inboard better, then how are you ending on an additional interruption? Like our standard inboard, the maxed out inboard was 90 Blast and Soul Flare. Now we can have 90 Blast, Soul Flare, and 38. So how is that not any better? Yes, you only get one more pseudo interruption / negate, but when you pair that with Galaxy 100 and you properly time your interactions, they go a long way. That's with any deck. If you don't have, not every deck has to have 15,000 interruptions, guys, no matter what deck you play. Or negates. It's all about properly timing. And this card helps you with that. Because with what it does is, with your combo, because my combo that I do with this deck, I base it around going and getting Galaxy 100 before I fully play my combo. Granted, it's not playing around Nib majority of the time, but it's still the best way of interacting, getting card knowledge and deck knowledge, knowing my opponent's playing. So basically, full combo with this deck in my list, basically, or whatever the deck provides. With playing, if I have God Hand, I can end on the board that I told you with 38, Blast, 90 Soul Flare, with a follow-up or a pop in hand or a hand trap with Galaxy 100. In theory, that's not the greatest negate or a board because you only have 2 negates and a pop. 1 monster, 1 spell, 1 pop. But with that combo and inboard and protection, but with that combo and inboard, I also ripped one out of their extra deck, so I know what they're playing. So now that I know what they're playing, I can sit back, properly time my interruptions and negates, and they will go a long way. Because with that, we're also going to rip another one out of their extra deck too, with Galaxy 100, with our negate / interruptions. Because let's say I had Photon Dragon in hand, okay? On their standby phase, I want to search my follow-up, as in probably Sanctuary, with number 90, okay? Then, I'm going to let them start their combo, okay? Then, I want to properly time my negates. Let's say I already burned through 38, blah, blah, blah. I use 38. Let them, because now that I know what they're playing, and if you know what the deck does, which is where it leads me to the next thing, it's better to know definitely meta decks. Even if you don't plan on playing them, learn what they do, guys. Learn what they do, because learning what they do makes you a better player and makes your deck better. Because if you know what they do, then you know how to properly time your interruptions. So basically, let them pick a line of comboing that they're going to do. Let them commit to it, because with a lot of meta decks and top tier decks, like the top heavy decks, their cards can do different things, basically, and to go different routes with the extra deck. Let them pick a route, and then properly time your interruptions. So like basically, if I'm playing a Sprite, for an example, at the time of us recording this video, they just came out and Toad and all that's still legal. I'll let them, at this point I would have already probably ripped their Toad out, but let's say I didn't. Okay? I ripped out an Elf or something, for an example. They start going Swap Frog and all that. Soon as they summon the 2 level 2 waters, that's like Swap Frog and Ronan Toadin or whatever. Or Duke Frog, whatever the one that does it. I don't know. I don't give a shit. But they got the other one on board. Okay? And it looks like they're about to go into Toad. This is where I chain my Soul Flare to pop their special summon Frog. It goes to the grave. My Photon Dragon goes to the grave. Now I wait before I special summon Photon Dragon with Blast. I want to see what line they go to next. Now that I cut them off from getting another water on board to be able to go into their Toad. Now, since they're going second, they might go into another form of interruption because they're trying to break my board. Then what I do now is they just make a random XZ that doesn't really do nothing, okay? Then I would chain Blast, bring back my Photon Dragon, then chain Galaxy 100 to chain my Galaxy 100 to look at their extra deck and get rid of their Zeus. Because the number one way for them personally, for an example, the best way they can break a board is with Zeus. Yes, they have other ways they can break board. I'm not saying they can't break boards other ways. I'm just saying their best way is Zeus. Got rid of their Zeus and I got rid of their Toad, for an example. That's going to be really rough for them to play out of that. It's not just Sprite, it's just any deck. You learn what they do and you know what the general idea. You don't need to learn every single card. Just learn for the most part and get familiar with the combo, and then you'll be all right. Or for any deck, because it's better. The best way to be the best duelist that you can be is learn your opponent's decks or learn the decks that are out there and then you are going to see just as much as you know your own deck, if not better, because that's only going to make you better and it's going to make your interactions with your deck and their deck better, which is going to make your deck better. I'm over out here giving y'all some Patreon tips and stuff for free, man. But moving on to the extra deck. Another thing about Galaxy Hunter, real quick. Galaxy Hunter is also indirectly a pseudo Rhoda too, just like Trance is, because you can foolish a Galaxy or Photon card or whatever, and then add it back with Soul Flare. Just to throw that out there. Because there was one situation where I had Knight in hand and I already had Emperor on board. I used it to send a Photon Dragon, then normaled the Knight and brought back the Galaxy as Photon Dragon, triggered Galaxy Hunter, ripped one out of their extra deck, and then just overlaid into whatever I needed to, or I continue on with my combo. So remember that too. Galaxy 100 has a crap ton of utility in this deck. Whether it's a Rhoda, special summon number monsters, or banishing cards or from their extra deck, and in the process of banishing cards from the extra deck, getting not card advantage, but deck knowledge. So you know what they're playing, so you indirectly know what negates or interruptions you need to make. If they're playing random cards, then you might not need to make a 38 because they're probably not running spells, or they are running spells, or you need to make 38 number 90 plus something else. But it's basically knowing your deck and knowing your opponent's deck. But moving on to the extra deck, we got Bushinki Ashima. This card will probably never leave my deck, and as long as we don't get any better support that could power creep her. She gets you out of sticky situations, and she helps you play around Nib. A lot of people have cut her, and it makes me sad because the card is actually very good. And like I said, it gets you out of sticky situations and allows you to play around Nib. Because even though we got all these new support cards, they are still every now and then those general times where you don't have matching levels because we still technically don't have a true Rhoda or starter. So it's kind of hard to get into our rank 8s sometimes or our rank 4s, and Ashima can help that. So, and if you don't have the proper hand to play around Nib and you have a bad feeling that your opponent has Nib and you don't have no follow-up if you get Nibbed, Ashima can play around that because her summon from hand, grave, and overlay is all in one summon / effect. So a lot of people will try to misplay, and a lot of it's not on purpose because they just don't know the card, which is completely fine. We're all human, and it's impossible to know every card in the game. It just is, no matter how good of a duelist you are. So it's okay to make misplays. But a lot of people will try to nib you when you summon from grave and hand off of Ashima, and they can't do that because it immediately overlays into a monster. So it pseudo misses timing, kind of, if that makes sense. Their nib misses timing because you summon from grave, hand, and immediately overlay into a monster. So they can't nib you. So if you know you can't make 90 in 5 summons, but you can make Ashima and make in like 3 summons or 4 summons, she's your 4th summon. You can and then make number 90 afterwards. It helps you play around Nib, and that's all that matters. They can't stop it basically unless they impermanent or something too. So she plays a big role in the deck. I'm sorry if it's kind of confusing, or I'm talking in circles, but I just want to make sure you guys know that it helps you play around sticky situations when you don't have the proper levels, and you can play around nib. Moving on to Soul Flare. Soul Flare, Soul Flare, you don't need 3. If you properly rotate your cards, well, recycle your cards, not rotate, you'll always have 1 in deck. 2 has always been the number. 2 will probably always be the number. Soul Flare is our main follow-up slash give us our resources back type card. It recycles. It can recycle our extra deck cards too, which is really nice. So there's that. Moving on to Blast. Blast is still mandatory because it's the best protection card, and it's an extender too. Not much really needs to be said about that. You don't need any of the other rank 4s, not the other Star Liege card. That card is power cut from hell. It's doo-doo butter. Galaxy Photon Dragon. This card has actually surprised me. I'll admit when I was wrong about this card not being as good as it was. I still thought it was a solid card when I gave you all my raw thoughts on the deck, but I 110% think this card is it brings a lot to the table and it brings a lot to the deck. You don't need more than 2 of it though, because you just recycle it with Soul Flare, Galaxy Cleric, stuff like that. You can just recycle it. And past turn 1, you don't really need it unless you're just trying to get super hand advantage, like in turn 2. That's why a lot of times I'll just link it off into Soul Flare, just to get more names engraved for Cleric and materials engraved. But this card is how you get to your Galaxy Wizard if you didn't hard draw it, or you get to your basically your Galaxy 100. This is a main combo piece moving forward, and it's mandatory to run it. Then 2 number 90. 2 number 90 is standard. It's been standard for the ratio for a while now. And basically the second one comes up mid to late game. You just recycle it back. Then number 38. I thought about cutting this card. If you saw my raw video when I was talking about the ratios and stuff like that, but since we have the ability to spam more rank 8s now, until we get a true like Omni Negate or something that's an in archetype, this one will probably stay there because until we do, and then if we do, this will probably be the one that will get swapped out for an Omni Negate. It's just being able to have that extra advantage, like on negating anything to slow our opponent down and to manipulate where our opponent attacks. Basically, is why he's still in here. Then Cypher Dragon, people sleep on Cypher Dragon. I do not know why. Cypher Dragon is just free, because sometimes if your opponent has a big board and you know you can't OTK, we're still going to break that board. Or if they have a big monster that, like, even though you negate its effect, you can't steal out, or you don't want them to get access to once it gets sent to the grave, you just steal it and then overlay on top of it with Cypher EX. Which is basically why Cypher EX is still in here, because it makes Cypher Dragon better, because it doesn't share the same restrictions that that is needed. Like you can't overlay full armor or Cypher Blade on top of it because of the Galaxy Eyes restriction or whatever. But Cypher EX passes that restriction, which is why Cypher Dragon is basically playable now because of that card. They're basically feed off each other, peanut butter and jelly. But there's a lot of times you'll see in the videos too that I couldn't really push through their board, or I was worried about it, or I couldn't OTK, but I wanted to ensure that I gained dominance in the game and I was ahead in card advantage and board presence, that I just completely picked their board apart, didn't want them to get access to those cards engraved, stole them, made them my cards and my material, to be able to keep their cards away from them, along with building my board and ensuring that I have a follow-up, basically, which is the number 1 priority. Then you have number 62 Prime. You're ever only going to make this if you're worried about like monster effects, basically, and being unaffected by monster effects, or you're trying to break through a board, basically. So like you're trying to break. But yes, you're only ever going to make this card if you're trying to push through boards. Like, you know you can't OTK basically because their monsters are too big. And you know that they have monsters that like to use monster effects to get rid of your cards. And since yours is like unaffected, that's the only time you're ever going to make that. If you're OTKing, you're still making the OG number 62. But this card is still a very good card, which is weird because it don't even look like a Galaxy House card. It looks like some kind of Bakugan or some shit. It looks like Dragonoid if you played or watched the Bakugan when you were a kid. Shout outs to you, bro. Me too. But moving on, we got number 62, standard OTK enabler, just push for game, GG's. Then we got Full Armor, my favorite one because I love the artwork on him. Popping cards, that's what we do, baby. Then Cypher Blade, Cypher Blade, Cypher Blade. Then Cypher EX, and then the Zeus. Moving on to the side deck, we got Alpha, the Master of Beasts. This card is going to have a lot of utility, I think, in Galaxy Eyes moving forward with the new support because it's an 8. And when you don't have Sanctuary, this card will be good. But if you have this in Sanctuary, then you're kind of hurting a little bit because Sanctuary locks you out of this card if you want to use Sanctuary. But this card going second can clear 2 cards and put itself back on board, basically. So you can special it. They can't chain nothing to it unless it's a judgment or something. Enter battle phase, attack over something problematic, main phase 2. Bounce it back to hand. Then summon it again, and it's an 8, and you can make rank 8s with it. So there's that. Then we got 1 Denko Sekka because it's searchable through Small World, and you don't really want to clog on it since we have an extra normal summon. There you go. Triple Droll and Lockbird because in the mirror match this card will put in work, and in a lot of generic decks this card puts in work. So if you don't want to max out on Ash, this is an Ash for the rest of the turn. So it's a really good card. 3 Dark Ruler No More because it just says no, and your opponent can chain to it with monsters. Evenly Matched, which is the best board breaker / just get rid of everything and not worry about it. A lot of people get mad because like, well, Drip, I like the OTK. That's fine too. I understand that, but I want to secure my win, and Evenly Matched can easily secure my win post resolving because I just use it and then make my turn 1 board that I'll normally make going first. And at that point, it's just hard to overcome because they lost out on hand advantage and they had 1 card on board that most likely I played through if it was a negate or a hand trap. And then only 2 Tachyon Transmigration. I know this is like a lot of you OG people don't like this and they like it in the main. I get that, but if you want to play this deck at its fullest potential, you can't do that until we get a way of fully searching that card. And until then, this card's going to be a side deck card. And even in the side deck, it's a 2 of because you don't want to clog on it. And it is a good card, but trap cards in the main deck are just asking to brick because it falls in the same category that I mentioned before, that the deck's consistency comes off of monsters and spells. And if you add traps in the mix, that's low-key worse because traps have to be set before activating. Yes, I understand you can run 107 and activate out as a hand, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. But the 107 is not good right now because there's nothing to really negate during the battle phase, and that's his only true utility. It's not worth it to lose an extra deck slot, just a main deck of card to be able to activate on a hand with still no real way of searching and doing all that. It's just, I promise, listen to me and I won't guide you in the wrong direction if you want to play it at its fullest potential. But that's actually it for the main deck, side deck, and extra deck, guys. One thing I will say, the only true flex spot is Ash. Everything else is spot on and perfect with ratios. There's not a thing I would change, even when the new stuff comes out, unless we get new support that I have not known of yet at the time of recording this video. Nothing in this video will change except for Ash probably, and that's it. Extra deck is spot on perfect. There's not a single card I will take out and replace it unless we get Dark Matter back, and even then I don't even think I would then, because the only true thing he brings to the table really is like extra deck locking, and that's just not very optimal anymore. Yeah, I might do it for the shits and giggles, but it won't be as highly as competitive as this list is. But I promise you guys, this is the best list, and I promise, give it a try, give it a shot. One thing I will say is, sorry if you're new to my channel and stuff, then you probably don't know what I mean when I say that stuff. But if you're OG and you've been around for a while, I'm not trying to sound cocky when I say stuff like that. That's not me. That's not my play. That's not how I do things, because I'm not a cocky person. I'm actually a very humble person when I say these things. It's just I put a lot of effort into these lists, and I know what they're capable of. So I'm not going to steer you in the wrong direction. But I apologize if you took it that way. That's not my intention. But with that being said, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already as well. Bell notifications so you never miss an upload. Check the description for all the wonderful ways to support me, whether it's Discord, Patreon, PayPal, or all of those. Patreon if you want help with picking my brain. training when it comes to any deck, me to build you a deck personally, I can do that, a deck list personally. There's a bunch of cool perks about being on there, whether it's you're there for a while and you get t-shirts, all the merch for free. You don't even have to pay for it. It goes along with you being a Patreon member for a while. But even if you're not a Patreon member, just being able to hit that like button or going to the Discord, become close to the DD fam, it all means to me equally the same, because I love hearing your all's feedback, seeing you all, that you all love my videos and content. That's the stuff that keeps me going and wanting to be able to bring you guys new content and videos. But again, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I love you all so much. And until next time, it's your boy Drip, Galaxy God. We out. Peace. Good doing, my guys.